Imagine this. You're following a recipe for the perfect fluffy chocolate cake. You mix the flour, the sugar, the cocoa, and then you reach for a small jar of white powder. But wait, does the recipe say baking soda or baking powder? Does it really matter? You swap one for the other, and an hour later, your cake is flat, dense, and tastes faintly like soap. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. These two simple kitchen staples look exactly the same, but chemically, they are entirely different beasts. Welcome to Simple Things Surprising Histories. Today, we are decoding the ultimate kitchen mystery: baking soda versus baking powder. What's the real difference, and why does getting it wrong ruin your dessert? Let's start with baking soda. Known chemically as sodium bicarbonate, this stuff is ancient. In fact, ancient Egyptians used a natural mix containing sodium bicarbonate called natron to clean their teeth and even to aid in mummification. It wasn't until 1846 that two American bakers began mass-producing it for kitchens, eventually forming the iconic Arm & Hammer brand. So how does it actually work? Baking soda is a pure alkaline base. To do its job, which is to make your dough rise, it desperately needs two things: moisture and an acid. Think buttermilk, lemon juice, yogurt, or even brown sugar. When baking soda meets an acid, a rapid chemical reaction occurs, releasing millions of tiny carbon dioxide bubbles. Those bubbles expand, lifting your batter into a fluffy masterpiece. But what if your recipe doesn't have any acidic ingredients? In 1843, a British chemist named Alfred Bird was in a tricky situation. His wife loved baked goods, but was highly allergic to yeast. Determined to give her fluffy bread without it, Bird invented a brilliant workaround: baking powder. What makes it so brilliant? Baking powder is actually just baking soda, but with the acid already built in, usually a dry acid like cream of tartar, plus a little cornstarch to keep them from reacting inside the jar. Because the acid is already there, you don't need lemon juice or buttermilk to trigger the reaction. All it needs is a liquid. Even better, most modern baking powders are double-acting. This means they create bubbles twice, once when they hit the wet ingredients in your bowl, and a second time when they hit the heat of the oven. This guarantees a perfect rise every single time. Now, the golden question: can you just swap them? The short answer is no. If a recipe calls for baking soda and you only have baking powder, you'll need to use about 3 times as much to get the same lift. But if a recipe calls for baking powder and you only have baking soda, you're in real trouble. Without an acidic ingredient in your batter to activate the soda, it simply won't rise. Worse, the unreacted baking soda stays behind in the baked cake, leaving a terrible soapy metallic taste. That's why recipes are so specific. Sometimes a recipe will even call for both. This happens when the acid in the recipe is enough to activate the soda for flavor and browning, but you still need an extra lift from the baking powder to make it perfectly fluffy. So, the next time you're baking, take a closer look at those little jars. Baking soda is the ancient single-ingredient powerhouse that needs a little acidic help. Baking powder is the all-in-one modern marvel with the acid built right in. Together, they are the quiet chemistry that turns a dense lump of dough into a culinary artwork. Thank you for watching this episode of Simple Things Surprising Histories. If you learned something new today, please hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves to bake or one who accidentally makes flat cakes, and subscribe for more fascinating stories hiding in your everyday life. See you next time.